So we're going to talk about search engines finding stuff on the internet, and let's see how this goes. I think most of you already know me, but real quick, I was a high-tech marketing guy back in the working days. I did do application software programming with Fortran and COBOL. Um, I do run a marketing consulting firm. I still dabble in that some, but I've had that for 20 years. Uh, Surprisingly, I grew up with computers, and that's a real quick story. In high school in the mid 60s, a little town in south central Wyoming ended up with an IBM 1620, which was a state of the art computer then. It cost in today's money about $10,000 a month to lease that computer. I have no idea how a high school with 300 kids in it, ended up being able to support this computer. But I fell in love with computers at that point, and so I've been around computers ever since then. Most of you know I'm a Mac guy. I'll boot Windows if I have to, but I'd rather not. In fact, tomorrow we're doing a presentation on switching from PC to Mac. There's still room. It's at the Senior Center, and if you're interested, come by. So I always like to do a little thing about, is this presentation for you? And if it is for you if you often search the internet for stuff. Well, that's crazy. Everybody does that. You want to know more about how internet search works? We're going to explore that a little bit. We want to talk a little bit about the safety of using internet search engines. We're also going to talk quite a bit about AI, and this is a big change since we very first created this presentation a couple of years ago. AI is now the predominant way to do searches, and we're going to talk a lot more about that. Or you might have just dropped in to see if it would be entertaining. So we're going to talk, first of all, about what is a search engine and how does it work. And then we're going to talk about popular search engines. And then we're going to get to, I always call that the not particularly useful, but mildly entertaining section. So you can sleep through that if you want, whatever. But this section, the informative and hopefully useful section, is the part that you'll want to pay attention to. So first of all, really quickly, how frequently do you search the internet? All day long, 10 times a day? Anybody got any?
Too many. Times a day,
Ken. Too many, yeah. Everybody does it. What kind of things do you look for? Places to eat, shopping, that kind of thing. And I am interested in which search engine do you generally use? Raise your hand if it's Chrome. Yeah, mostly Chrome. How about Safari, folks with Macs? Edge? DuckDuckGo? No, not many DuckDuckGo. All right, we're going to talk about all of those. The question is, do you generally easily find what you're looking for? And if the answer is maybe or sometimes, hopefully we'll fix that after this presentation. So first of all, what is the search engine? There'll be a test on this, so you'll want to memorize this. This is from ChatGPT. A search engine is blah, 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 blah. The bottom line is it's a program that finds stuff for you. That's a search engine. Now, that isn't to be confused with a browser like DuckDuckGo or Safari. Oh, I mentioned Safari earlier, or Chrome. Google is the search engine, and Chrome is the browser. So we need to keep that distinction going. So what do people generally search for? And I, believe it or not, I searched for this information. And you can see here, it's kind of split between information and news and entertainment, health and wellness, and technology and gadgets. I personally do a lot of searching for technology and gadgets because when we're at the Senior Center and someone says, how do I make the text bigger on my iPhone? Well, rather than trying to remember it in my brain, I will just do a search for it. And in fact, I often say now, I don't even think anymore. I just have ChatGPT think for me. So we're going to talk more about that. Oops. Let me admit these people. There we go. Okay, so there's lots of different search engines. Bing is one that's popular. Obviously, Google, DuckDuckGo is both a browser and a search engine. Yahoo, we remember the old days. There's one called Startpage, which is for privacy. FreeSpoke talks a lot about privacy as well. So I thought it'd be interesting to have a background here, and that is, let's look and see what search engines were popular since 1994. And that's just about the time that search engines were invented. So if you were around then, you remember Lycos and remember Excite and Yahoo. And I used Alta Vista a lot back in that time. Well, let's start at January 1994. And we're going to quickly go through the years to 1998. Look at Alta Vista was the most popular. But there's something, and we used ASCII, if you remember that. There was something interesting popped on the scene in 1998, and that was this little company called Google, or Alphabet, and they introduced a browser called Google. So let's look at what happened after 1998. Look at Google. The reason for Google's popularity was, number one, it was more accurate, and it presented better answers than anybody else's search engine. But the other thing is they're really good at advertising, and it's the only thing that Google does or did back then, and that was provide results for searching the internet. So something interesting happened in April 2023. This little guy right here called ChatGPT came out, and that wasn't that long ago. And let's go up to today and look at ChatGPT. ChatGPT is probably clear up in here now. This was almost a year ago. So you can see how things change. This is new technology. ChatGPT is new technology. All right. We're going to replay that. So let's look real quick at how search engines work. And this applies to all search engines, including AI-based search engines. First of all, there's this thing called a web crawler, and it's zillions of programs, and it goes through every single web page that it can find on the internet. So it goes to Apple, it goes to YouTube, Microsoft, Amazon, King Soopers, and it does what we call indexing. It looks at every word on every page and puts those indexes into a really big database. That database right now is around 100 petabytes. A petabyte is 1,000 terabytes.
I never even heard of a petabyte, did you?
Pardon?
Oh.
You know what a petabyte is, Jackie and Cass?
No.
Yeah,
never heard of it.
It's 100 million gigabytes, so it's a lot. So each entry in this really big database contains the word itself and then the locations of the web pages that contain that word. So, for example, the word Apple, right? Apple appears in millions, if not billions, of web pages. You know, from apple.com, obviously, to Walmart shopping fresh gala apples, eat usaapple.org, apple varieties. So every one of the entries in that database for the word Apple contains a pointer back to the web page. So if we look at how that works, when you want to search, you bring up a web page like google.com and you type in your query. Let's say, how many apples are sold each day? The search engine then looks at each keyword in a really big database that was in your query, and it performs the magic. And that magic varies depending on whether you're just getting a list of web pages or whether an AI chatbot takes hold of that information. But it returns a list of web pages and/or, I should fill this out for AI, and/or prose in using a large language model. So it's like conversing with you. So then it formats the list, and this involves when AI is involved explaining to you the results. In the old Google days, it was a list of web pages, and it brings it to you. So that's how it works. Basically, there's a huge database. Every time you type something in, and if you type it in, for example, in Google, Google will often show you how long the search took, and it can take like zero point 0.3 seconds of computer time to go through that really big database. So let's look at the result return for Google, for example. If I say how many apples were sold each day, Google has an AI, an artificial intelligence called Gemini, and Gemini creates a response that's in natural language format. In this case, it says it's difficult to pinpoint the exact number of apples, for example, blah, blah, blah. So it's condensing the results of the search and expressing it to you in natural language. And then it suggests some similar queries. Who buys the most apples in the world? How many iPhones are sold each day? That's looking at Apple as capital A, Apple. And then it will give you the results, which is a list of websites that have that meet that query, that will answer that query. If you look at DuckDuckGo, it's similar. DuckDuckGo just recently introduced what it calls a search assistant, and that's an AI-generated response. And then it also gives you a list of results. And you can see here, DuckDuckGo uses some different AI tools in order to provide this summary response here. Similarly, Bing, if you use Bing as your search engine, you can see here you get some results, and then you'll also get AI response from Microsoft AI called Copilot. And Copilot actually uses OpenAI's GPT models to provide you with this response. And then it will also show you, obviously, a list of websites that are the results. So they're all pretty similar. They present it in different ways, but they'll, in general, give you something that hopefully answers what you're looking for. I did want to note a couple of things here, and I should have put the handout in the chat window. Darn it. Daryl, do you happen to have that? I'll do it near the end.
No, I can do it. Well, I'll do it. I'll figure it out.
Okay, thanks. I don't want to go over all of these, and they'll be in the handout. So they are ways to narrow down your search and to improve your search right off the bat. For example, if I put a minus sign in front of a word, that says I want to see all the web pages that have the word apples in that page, but not the word recipe. So you put a minus sign in front of it. Or you can say, you can narrow it down to the site. For example, I want to find all the web pages on the internet that contain the word iPad, but only in the site apple.com. So we'll only search apple.com. If you put it in quotes, it will search for that exact phrase. And there's a bunch more of these that are in the handout. This is kind of what's in the handout. You can see here, you can look for stock, you can use the wildcard, you can look for social media, and so on. So just play with these if you want, like search with a range of numbers. So if you say camera $50 to $100, it will look for web pages that have the word camera in the shopping that are priced between $50 and $100. Oh, Joe, you've raised your hand. Was that intentional?
Yeah, one of the things that I frequently have a problem with is spacing with the symbols. Sometimes you have to have a space, sometimes you don't have to have a space with these things. You know, like when you do cite colon, do you put a space after the colon or not after the colon? When you have the minus sign, do you put it before the minus sign, or do you just put it with the word? Or, you know, could you address that, please?
Well, out of necessity, the language that you use here, these keywords, have a pretty precise syntax. So they're not overly generous with how you might format your query. In other words, if you have a minus sign, it must immediately follow, the word must immediately follow. There can't be a space there. If there is a space there, you're going to get different results. Similarly, if you say site colon, or in this case, file type colon, if you put a space after that, you're going to get different results and not the results you wanted. So in general, don't put spaces between those operators, but more specifically, you have to follow the rules. Okay, so go and take a look at the rules, the syntax, and make sure you follow them. It's not very forgiving in terms of how you format it. Does that make sense? It's kind of out of necessity because this is a weird language, right? These are all kind of really weird things. And at the same time, it's trying to take a string of words and format that into a query. So the way you specify things like file type is pretty specific. Does that help? It probably doesn't help, but it's the answer.
So if one thing doesn't work, put a space in. If it does work,
well, you have to be careful because you'll get results regardless.
Yeah.
But if I say file type colon space PDF, I'll get results that have the word file type colon in them because there's a space after that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd have to fall back on a time-honored IT saying, and that is you'll have to read the manual. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. This is DuckDuckGo. If you use it as a search engine, it's very similar to Google, but it has a few little quirks. But again, I just play with these. The other thing is search filters, and these are actually very useful. If you haven't used them, or you have only used them occasionally, they actually help a lot. And that's these filters right here. For example, if I say how many apples are sold each day and all is the default, it shows me all web pages that answer that query, that Google thinks will answer that query. If you tap on the images filter, you will only see images that fit this query. And so that could be interesting. Obviously, shopping gives you shopping sites that would sell you apples. We should probably try these and see what happens. Similarly, news will give you news. And then there's some additional filters if you click on the tools thing. And those additional filters are things like anytime, the result, I can't remember what these results are, and then it will also give you an advanced search. The anytime is useful, especially if you're doing news. You can say Putin-Trump summit, click on news, and for any time, put last 24 hours. And you will only get news articles that have that subject matter that would have been posted in the last 24 hours. So those are good shortcuts to narrow things down right off the bat. Bing and DuckDuckGo have similar, you can see they have similar tools. In the case of Bing, it actually will allow you to go directly into Copilot, which is Microsoft AI. Again, you can select videos, images, and so on. Similarly with DuckDuckGo, you have these tools. It will also take you to a settings panel, which is sort of like an advanced search. One other thing, all of these search engines have some kind of search filtering. So my 6-year-old grandson doesn't end up with images that he shouldn't be looking at. You can turn it off, obviously, but it's a conscious decision. You have to turn the safe search off in order to have those images be seen. So the default in the case of DuckDuckGo is moderate. I believe it's the default for Google as well. All right. So the title of the talk was choosing the right search engine, but we're really talking more about how you use search engines. But if you want to go kind of through a decision tree, if you want, Google is generally the best search engine in terms of general information. I think I would add ChatGPT to this now because ChatGPT is pretty good at providing general information. We're going to talk a lot more about that in a minute. The only thing about Google, and many of you know how I feel about the company Google, is that Google does this for a living. And when I say that, they get paid by advertisers to provide you with search results. That's the only thing Google does. So they're $1 trillion company that's based on advertisers paying them. So rest assured that your information about what you're searching for is being put to good use. Okay. You can see there's things like tech or coding and so on. If you want AI help, obviously ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, Gemini. There's hundreds of search engine websites that use AI now. ChatGPT is the most popular currently. Copilot is probably a close second because it's Microsoft native. ArcSearch is interesting. I downloaded that. There's actually a browser that they provide as well. If you're concerned about tracking and ads, these search engines here, DuckDuckGo, Brave Search, FreeSpoke, StartPage, that's their forte. Now, you know, it's questionable how much better they are, but they are better at blocking advertisers and cross-site traffic and that kind of thing. So if you're concerned about advertising, look at one of these search engines. All right, so let's talk about AI and search engines here. And they're called chatbots. The cool thing about, have any of you seen our presentation on if AI is hype or real? I think it's on our, Connie says yes. Yay, Connie. That is a hoot. That presentation is a lot of fun. The problem is it has to be updated every week. So, because AI is changing so fast. Anyway, the cool thing about a chatbot or searching the internet for you is that you can converse with it. It uses a large language model, which is we could do a whole presentation on that, but it's a way of taking language, natural human language, and forming it so that it develops or intuits the relevance of the search. It's amazing how it works. The other thing that's really great about this is it's literally a chat experience. You can say, and I've got an example here, and we'll go through that, but you can converse with it, and it remembers the conversation. So you're not doing a new search every time you type in it. And we'll talk about that. Now, you can also have these chatbots. This isn't really related to search, but you can say, hey, create me an email to Target because I had a rude cashier the other day, and it will develop an email for you that you can develop the exact tone you want, and it will create it for you. So there's lots of things related to writing that these AI chatbots do. Also, it can generate images and videos. We're not going to go into that. See our presentation on AI if you want to see some amazing stuff that AI can do. This is one of them. I said, how does AI help an internet search? I said, create me an image, and it created that image. So that image is unique to me. I mean, nobody else has that image. It was created, in this case, by Photoshop, but Copilot will do it, ChatGPT, all of those will create images for you. Again, see the presentation on AI. You can see these are kind of the benefits that an AI chatbot has. It really is user friendly. Many of my searches today, the response begins with, "That's an excellent question, Bobski," because the chatbot knows me. And it just gets crazier from there. So this is in the handout as well. These are some popular chatbots, but today there are literally hundreds of different chatbots. Most of them will use one of these, like the ChatGPT, the basis for ChatGPT is OpenAI. Will use one of them, but they put their own spin on it. So, and you can get to these by just going to these websites. Do we have a question, Nancy? Nope.
No.
Okay.
Are you tired, Jimmy? Are you tired, Jimmy?
Mute button works. Yay. So let's look at this. These are some questions you can ask an AI chatbot like ChatGPT. I did this one. Now, this really wouldn't be something you would type into Google. This would be something you would type into ChatGPT. And it found about 10 different articles about the murder of my great-great-grandfather in Pueblo in 1892. And it showed me the sources. It gave me all of this information straight away. And some of them I hadn't seen before, which is really interesting. Another example is, let's say I'm shopping for a new laptop. So find the best 14-inch laptop under $900. Make a table with blah blah blah. I did this, and in fact, in each row it put a citation, which was a link to the website that it used to determine this. So that's another advantage to a chatbot, is it will reference how we got that information. If you type in, "help me see the best sites in London in 3 days," it will create an itinerary for you, show you a little thumbnail of the site that you're going to see, and so on. Or how many apples are sold each day, right? So let's look at that. So I asked ChatGPT how many apples are sold each day. One of the things about ChatGPT is it's really verbose. You can tell it you want it to be less verbose, but by default, it just goes on and on. And so this is the result that it gave me. ChatGPT always follows up with a question, like, "would you like a more specific estimate for a certain region or type of seller?" If you say yes, because it's a chat, it will do exactly that. But just to give you an example, I said, no, when I say apple, I mean capital A apple. I typed that in. Got it. You mean Apple, the tech company. So it recognized that I had typed in a capital A apple and promptly went out and produced all this answer about how many capital A apples are sold each day. And notice the follow-up question, a particular product or aspect of Apple sales. So I encourage you to experiment with these AI search engines, because they're the way of the future. There's absolutely no question about it. So I went to Copilot Designer, again, that's Microsoft, and I said, create an image of how many apples are sold each day. And it created this image for me. And it's kind of interesting, because you'll see, like, this woman over here doesn't really have eyes. This person is just, their head is just really convoluted. So, and if you, this guy here is not even a human, I don't think. In our AI presentations, we talk about how these images are generated, and they're prone to this sort of thing because, in general, it's very compute intensive to create these. And so the image designer AI companies just approximate the image. This is just an approximate image. And of course, it's got all these little hallucinations, as they're called. but it was interesting. It's kind of a cool image. Anybody familiar with Google Lens? Google Lens is a little sidetrack we're going to take. It uses AI. Yes, North. Did North raise your hand?
I was just raising my hand, asking if anybody was familiar with Google Lens. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of AI, right? Google Lens is interesting because it uses images to search the internet. The example, and I think this really applies to your phone, for example, both Android and iPhone. You can take a picture or put your camera up to a leaf and say, "What is this?" And it will search the internet based on that image. So the example I use here is my little toy Australian Shepherd named Indy, and I took that picture and I said, find all the images on the internet based on this photo. And you can see, look, little Aussies, little Aussies, little Aussies. Well, one thing that came out was it also came up with some Chihuahuas. And I was like, well, that's kind of a bogus response until we did her DNA. And we found out she indeed has almost half Chihuahuas. So Google Lens was right when it found some Chihuahuas that look like Indies. Anyway, do I have an example here? To use Google Lens, just go to google.com, and in the search bar, we can do that when we get done here. We can go to a browser and look at it, but it's right there in the search bar over on the right hand side. A little bit about security. Well, we're going to be done in record time here. So be careful when you're searching, especially for technical help. It's a little less prevalent today because of the use of AI. But if I say help with Epson printer, this is the results that I got when I typed that in. And what happens is scammers pay to have their websites appear at the top of the list. You can see that these things are sponsored. See where it says sponsored? These are undoubtedly hackers, scammers that want to take your money. And if you call them, they'll want to get on your computer. They'll run some what look to be tests, but are really just utilities that everybody has on their computer, that they'll charge you for $100 for the session, and then they will ask you to sign up for, they'll tell you that your computer's been attacked by some malware and that you need to pay extra for the software, and on and on and on. And these guys undoubtedly are those kinds of scammers. Notice down here, all the way down the third or fourth thing is, yes, I looked and I saw that the URL is epson.com. Even then, you have to be careful because they might spell Epson with like 2 S's. So you still have to be careful. So just be careful when you're searching for assistance. It's probably better that I went straight to epson.com and then looked for the support site rather than doing a Google search for it. Anything to add to that, North? North is our cybersecurity genius.
I actually posted something in chat for everybody to read. So I've been doing some testing recently. With search engines, here's the cool thing. If you just if you jump into Google and do a search, Google makes its money off of sponsored ads. So the first results are always going to be the ads that are paid for. However, if you prompt AI in its summarization, it generally doesn't return the sponsored. It doesn't query the sponsored sites first. It actually goes to the legitimate sites first. So not saying that that's universal at this point, but using AI to query search engines doesn't always, it's less likely to return sponsored results. It'll just give you a summarization of fact. So AI is better with avoiding the sponsored results.
Great, thanks. Let's demo that here in a moment. We'll take a look and see what it looks like.
Great.
How's that sound? Any other questions? We're actually getting near the end here. These are the tips. Look at the URL. For example, here's support.hp.com, or better yet, just goes directly to the website. So instead of saying printer help and doing a DuckDuckGo or Google search, actually go to Epson.com or HP.com or Brother.com for your printer help. All right, we went through in record time here. If anybody that has any questions, just holler. If not, we can demonstrate some of this stuff.
Well, friends, that's a wrap. We hope you've enjoyed this video today. Hey, before you go, if you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to know when the latest SCTC video comes out, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. And if you have any ideas or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.